Welcome back to another episode of Tech Tuesday. I'm MJ, Product Support Manager here at JBS Equipment. And in today's video, we're going to be going over scale components on a JBS E-Series manure spreader. Let's get after it. Okay, so starting from the front of the machine, scale component wise, we have our ISOBUS plug. This will plug into virtually any tractor and enable the spreader to do full-on rate control on your tractor screen. If your tractor is not equipped with ISOBUS, there are several companies out there that can retrofit your machine or even possibly your tractor manufacturer. Next component we're going to go over is the PWM valve. All of the ISOBUS Athene rate control systems use a PWM valve to control floor speed. That is located on this E-Series right here. It has an electrical connector right here. When it is engaged or the floor is turned on, there should be a small LED light that pops up here. There is also a manual override screw right under here. So what you would do is pop this little acorn nut off, loosen the jam nut underneath it, and then use an Allen key in the end and run it in. If you have some sort of electrical problems, or just for diagnostic purposes, we can go ahead and thread this in and override the valve manually and not rely on a signal coming from the tractor to turn the floor on. On the front of all of the JBS E-Series manure spreaders with rate control, there will be some form of Hitch load cell. This particular one uses our square, very solidly mounted one. Some of the older machines or smaller machines would have used a round one. Either way, all the E-Series have a Hitch mounted load cell. So if we're running into issues where the T-factor is jumping all over the place, or just the feeling that maybe there's some weight issues going on, this is where that load cell is located, and underneath is where it plugs in. We'll head under there next. The rest of the load cells on an E-Series manure spreader are going to be mounted in 4 corners. There's one here, there, and then the other rear corners. They are also plugged into the J-block located up under the machine. You can see the label for the load cell here, its rating and its part number, and then the cable coming out of it. To enable rate control, we need to know how fast the floor chain is unloading or how fast the rear shaft is turning. Underneath this cover is a small shaft encoder that's mounted directly to the shaft and measures how quickly the rear shaft is turning, measured in RPM. There are a couple connectors here that we can check and keep an eye on. There's a 3-pin here and also an M12 connector. If we have an issue with the shaft encoder, easiest thing to tell is when the floor chain is running, you will get no tons per acre readout on your display, or the machine will start up and the floor speed will go automatically all the way to 100% and still not tell you how many tons per acre you're spreading. First thing I always look at is the shaft encoder working? There's some diagnostic screens that we could go into and check to see what the live readout of this shaft is at any time if you're running it in automatic mode or in manual mode. Another thing that we can check is up underneath here, there's a small set screw that tightens the shaft encoder to a small adapter shaft. I have seen it over time if that set screw does back out a little bit. The shaft encoder sits still and the shaft rotates inside of it and doesn't actually rotate that encoder. So underneath the JBS E-Series manure spreader, we have our ECUs mounted. We have the SM1X, which controls everything, sends signal back and forth between the trailer and the tractor. Then we also have the ScaleLink SL2. This controls or takes the readings from the load cells, interprets it into something that the SM1X can read. There's an indicator light right here. It's solid red when there's power and flashing when it's communicating. We want to see a flashing light. There are some indicator lights inside of the SL2 box, most of which we don't really deal with on a day-to-day basis. We could get deeper into that later on. Back here is our J-block. So this is the J-block underneath here. As you can see, it's labeled main. So that main wire is going to go from here into the SL2. The other 4 load cells are plugged directly into this. Those are the rear ones. The front load cell by itself is plugged directly in. If we have bouncing weights, inaccuracy or inaccurate spreading, we're going to look at doing a plug and unplug test. from time to time. So that basically consists of load the machine up, and then you're gonna unplug one load cell at a time, plug it back in, and record what the weight is every time you unplug a load cell. That helps us find out if a load cell is reading way high or way low. One of the main functions of the SM1X controller here is also PWM output, and then taking a signal from that shaft encoder we looked at the rear of the machine and processing that information. All of the connectors for all those devices are located right here. So we have a main power connector here, we have a 3-pin Deutsch, we have some more Deutsch connectors under here. You may at some point need to cut the zip ties from here to open up this bundle because there are more connectors underneath. Oftentimes, unplugging and reseating a plug fixes a lot of problems. The connectors used on here are watertight, but shit happens. One other component that is buried under here is the terminating resistor. I have had problems in the past with them. It's rare, but it does happen. So if you're asked to go find the terminating resistor and do a plug and unplug test, it's going to be located in this bundle. It's on a little short pigtail. It even says on the harness itself, to Terminator. So that'll be located under here. A lot of the other diagnostic stuff is done with a tractor or on a screen in a tractor, and that'll be a future video going through some of our diagnostic stuff, diagnostic tests that we might ask you to do, or even just if you're curious how things are working. So yeah.
That's another video?
Yeah, that'll be another video. I want to do diagnostics in the screen, just get people familiar. That's the whole point of this next couple videos for Tech Tuesday, is just having either customers or dealers familiar with where the parts are. Because when someone calls with a problem, it's usually, hey, this thing doesn't work. So then it's our job, between Marty and myself, to go ahead and, okay, what exactly is not working? Okay, well, if it's this kind of problem, like for example, when we talked about at the back, 4-speed goes to 100% right away, and you get no tons per acre readout. Well, that to me tells me that the rear shaft encoder isn't working properly or isn't sending a signal. The very first thing I'm going to get someone to check is the rear shaft encoder. If they present the problem of, hey, I turn it on, the floor speed goes immediately to 100%, and it says my tons per acre spread is 0. First place to look, shaft encoder. All the JBS manure spreaders, E-Series included, that have ISOBUS rate control also have beacon lights. As you can see, there's just one on this side. Wide bodies will have 2 down each side. These are user programmable, like a flasher light, that lets the loading operator know when you've hit weight capacity. From factory, we set up the beacon lights to go off at the suspension rating of the spreader. This particular machine is rated for 40,000 pounds inside the box. So it'll be set off to go off at 40,000 pounds. If for some reason you want to set that lower, there is a setting under beacon weight that you can select anything you want. If you only want to put 25,000 pounds in here and have the lights go off, you can do that. But we have had other customers in the past that had 2 of the same spreader, but they knew that if you had 20,000 pounds in it, you could go a particular distance, and they know that it takes 25,000 pounds to go that distance, then you can set them up to 25,000 pounds. Often people are doing this because they don't want to go like down halfway and then come halfway back. They just want to do one straight shot, get off the field, go back to the pile, reload, and do their line. Or if they can, go there and back. Just depends on field shapes and run distances, that's all. So that would be a reason that you would want to set the beacon light other than what the suspension rating is. One little thing I wanted to mention about the first time you plug this ISO cable into your tractor, don't be alarmed if it doesn't pop up right away. Because there's some software and some settings that are coming from the Athene rate control system that need to be loaded onto the tractor. Sometimes you'll see a little progress bar or percentage ticking away. Eventually that goes to 100%, and then boom, spreading screen pops up. Just wanted you guys to know that it probably won't pop up right away, and you're gonna have to wait a little bit. But every time thereafter, with the same tractor, as soon as you key it on, your tractor screen boots, the ISO screen shows up. We ship a protective cover, which is not waterproof, I should add. And there's your ISO standard plug. It's well, the connector is waterproof when it's plugged into the tractor, but this is more like just like a dust cap, or to make sure you don't short out 2 pins or something. But it is not waterproof. So if you leave this out in the rain, hanging any direction, it will fill up with water. But just give it a good shake, but shake it more than twice and you're playing with it. that's pretty much it for the ISO stuff. We went over the PWM valve, the manual override, that there's an indicator light on there. We've gone over the shaft encoder, basic symptoms of that, where the connectors are. We showed where all the load cells are. We've gone over where the ECU is mounted, the terminating resistor, the SL2, where all those components are, the junction block, or the J block, as I call it. So that's where everything is. So if you have a problem, you can give us a shout or give your dealer a call. And if they ask you, hey, I need you to go check the shaft encoder, boom, you can reference this video, know exactly where it is. It's a good idea to familiarize yourself with the parts and pieces that make up a piece of equipment. Better understanding of it, it's easier to maintain that way, it'll last longer, and you'll spread tons of shit. Well, that concludes this episode of Tech Tuesday. If you have a video idea that you'd like to see, drop it in the comments section below. See you in the next one.